I usually don't comment on situations like this until I get a really good feel of what's going on, what I think. Once the facts start coming out, and even when other analysts start seeing things and figuring out what the real story is here. Well, last night I was following this in the news, following this on Twitter, following all the information, and immediately it smelled funny, right? First off, now they're trying to pin it on this one guy here, this Michael Xavier, right? They're trying to make him look like a militant veteran, militant Black Power, Black Lives Matter type, and I already think it sounds fishy. So I want to just go over a few things here in this video that lead me to believe that this was a false flag. Now, by false flag, I do not mean fake. I believe people died. I believe people were shot. Something being a false flag does not necessarily mean that it was a hoax or it was fake or whatever you want to call it, that it was just crisis actors, things like that, because it's not. Oftentimes, these are done by agent provocateurs. There are, black government entities that will perpetrate these events, and then usually they will find a patsy to pin it on, and then the patsy will end up being killed either in a shootout or in police custody. So let's take a look here at the suspect story and what the narrative is there. So as this was going on, we had multiple reports coming out. At first it was 2 snipers, and then it was 3 snipers, and then it was 4, and then it was 5. So I've seen reports all the way from 2 to 5. And now, as you can see here, you already see that it went from multiple suspects now to focusing on one person who I personally believe is a patsy. I would not be surprised if you find out that this guy had involvement with the FBI. Anytime the FBI is involved in something, you know that something is not right. So let's look at a couple of different situations here where we have evidence of multiple suspects before they try to make those news stories go away. So this here supposedly shows that there was a suspect or 2 suspects. I've seen varying reports on this, that there were 2 suspects that got in a Mercedes. They threw a camouflage bag in the car, and then they took off down the street and were stopped on the freeway, which is interesting that they were stopped on the freeway like that. That alone looks shady to me. However, this shows evidence of multiple suspects. Why is that? Well, because there were multiple shooters. We have multiple pieces of evidence showing multiple shooters. Multiple eyewitness people saw multiple shooters. So this guy right here was open carrying at the protest, openly, not trying to be secretive or sneaky or whatever, and he was thought to be the original suspect. He ended up turning himself in. The story goes that he took his gun and unloaded it and gave it to a police officer. Fortunately, he was smart and turned himself in and was not caught with his rifle, because I think that he would have been another patsy in this situation. I think that that's why they had everybody looking for him, because they were hoping to catch him and, get him in a shootout with the cops or whatever and say that he was, one of the actors in this shooting. So we have mistaken identity, and I think that this guy absolutely lucked out. Here's another article showing 2 people in a vehicle after the shootings. I'm not exactly sure if this is the same one that they are claiming on the freeway. However, this is just more evidence of different news reports showing that there were, in fact, multiple shooters.
Floor, we believe, is one of the shooters, and we are negotiating with that person as we speak. So I'm going to have to get back real quick. But we do know what happened is that 2 snipers, at least 2 snipers, from elevated positions as the protest rally march ended, began firing upon our officers, ambush style, and shot what we believe at this point 11 officers. We've confirmed one more since we put out the initial 10. 11 officers were shot, and 3 are deceased. Some shot in the back. We believe that these suspects were positioning themselves in a way to triangulate on these officers from two different perches in garages in the downtown area, and planned to injure and kill as many law enforcement officers as they could. We are reaching out to the families of all these officers and getting them transported to the hospital, so we'll ask for your prayers for these families. And we ask that you give our officers strength to catch these suspects and bring them to justice tonight. If anyone has information about these suspects, please call the Dallas Police Department, call 911, and give us that information so we can bring these people to justice. We also believe that these suspects have threatened to plant a bomb in the downtown area. We have reached out to our federal law enforcement partners, both the FBI and the ATF, to help us search for both the suspects, or maybe it's more, and to do a very thorough search of this area where we believe there might be a bomb planted. And again, I'll quickly take some questions, but I want to remind you, we've got one of these suspects cornered, and I need to get back and take care of the business of protecting this city. So
let me finish, and then we'll take the questions. Okay. I ask everybody to focus on one thing right now, and that is our Dallas police officers, their families, those that are deceased, those that are in the hospital, fighting for their lives. Let's all come together and support our police officers. I've never been as proud. I believe we've got one of the best forces in the nation, and we've done things with civil rights in the right way, and we've done it for the safety of our citizens. So please, let's come together right now as a city. Let's take some questions.
Chief, talk about the pictures you guys want put out. Who are these people you're looking for in the pictures? They handed a bunch of these out.
right, we wanted to show a person of interest who witnesses at the scene say were involved in this shooting in some way. So this is a person of interest. As you can see, they're in camouflage, and they have a rifle strap slung with a rifle butt sticking up. And we know that rifles were used to injure and kill Dallas officers and a Dart officer. And so if anyone knows or recognizes this picture, please immediately call 911. Do not approach this suspect. We'll bring him to justice.
Chief, I'm sorry, to get the numbers straight, there's 10 Dallas police officers that have been shot, 3 Dallas police officers deceased, 1 Dart officer and 4 Dart officers shot, or does that include the 10 are also Dart
Right,
officers?
so again, the initial release was we had 10 officers shot. One of those officers is a Dart officer, and they're deceased. Another Dart officer was injured, but not deceased. There's 2 Dallas officers deceased. And as I mentioned, to update you, from that initial 10, we've had an additional officer to bring the total to 11. Any other questions?
And we also have one civilian that was shot.
Yes.
Wounded or killed?
Wounded.
Wounded.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll get back with you
Thank you.
guys.
So you can see very clearly that they were trying to make it look as if there were multiple suspects, and now they are changing the narrative as we speak, trying to pin it on one person.
Of why, the motivation, who they are, but our detectives are diligently interviewing and interrogating these people, and we'll find that out and share it with you as soon as we have it.
So, Chief, fair to say that you're talking about 4 people, 1 in the garage, 2 in the car, and the other one was in the garage. You believe they were all working together at this point?
That's our assumption now, and working together with rifles, triangulated at elevated positions in different points in the downtown area where the march ended up going, the route of the march. And so there had to be some speculation from us that there's some knowledge of the route where you'd be, because how would you know to post up there? And so we're leaving every motive on the table of how this happened and why it happened, but we're waiting for the suspects to break and let us know what they're doing.
But it's clear you have a lot of resources at your disposal. Were these people on anyone's radar? You had the FBI here, I know. You have a lot of other agencies.
We were monitoring social media, and we had attended many of the planning meetings for the protest group, and we have yet to determine whether or not there was some complicity with the planning of this, but we'll be pursuing that.
And that takes me to my next question. Do you know if they were a part of the rally or were posted up in that garage the whole time?
That's yet to be determined. Yes?
Last question.
This week, there was a person that was on Facebook making threats and advocating the shooting of Dallas police officers. Did you guys take a look at that, and is that person involved in any way?
Yet to be determined. There's a lot of things on social media that get posted that we monitor and follow up on. Whether or not there's a connection to that post with any of these suspects, we have yet to determine that, but we definitely will be pursuing any of that to a connection that we can prove and charge a person with.
The chief and I have some business. He's got to make some tough calls, and he and I are going to be going to the hospitals right now, and it's important for us to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our sympathies, Chief.
Thank you.
Our shot is clear, you say?
Robbie, let's go this way, okay? I know Mike can be.
Okay, what do you guys want from me?
All right, so we have been seeing varied reports on how many suspects there are, who they are, what they were doing, and all that stuff. So it looks like they're going to be pinning this on a single suspect. I'm already seeing in the news reports that the narrative is being changed to a suspect as opposed to suspects. Right? We've got this Micah Johnson guy. They have pictures of him looking militant. He's he's a veteran. He served in the military and seems like a pretty good patsy for this situation. We're saying that there are 3 in custody, but I'm expecting this to change. It's obvious that this was some type of false flag using agent provocateurs, and the narrative is already changing, just like it always does. You would think that there would be, considering that the media is owned by a small group of ultra-powerful organizations, that they'd be able to get one story right when this stuff happens. But they want us confused. They don't want people questioning the narrative. They don't want people questioning the official story. So this is Micah Xavier Johnson. This is the person that they are pinning the attack on. You see he's got some African garb on. I don't know exactly what it's called. He's got some military stuff going on, camouflage. He's a former soldier. He said that he did this alone. So that's key, right? We don't have any evidence as of now that he actually said it, but now they are saying that he did this alone. They have multiple suspects, right? Multiple suspects in company as I am making this video, but now they're trying to change it to he did this alone. There's his Facebook picture. There's him in his military dress. And it's just interesting that they are already trying to change the narrative. Got him in his military stuff, so yeah, they're trying to make it look like it's a sole person that did this, when we know for a fact that multiple witnesses see multiple shootings. Looks like he's, Black Power, we gotta further divide the people. And then the chief says, if anyone else was involved in the shootings, we will find you and we will bring you to justice. I find it extremely interesting that they have multiple suspects, and yet they're trying to tell us again that there's one suspect. That's how you can see when these things are false flags. They want to do two things here. They want to divide the races, take away our guns, and they want to make veterans look like villains. And they've wanted to do this for a long time. Matter of fact, Homeland Security looks at veterans as being a terror threat. Here's another interesting one. Police took part in the planning of the peaceful rally and march, the chief says. So I find this all very interesting that they're trying to pin it on one person. So just a quick recap of what we have so far. We have, in the beginning, up to 5 suspects. That's been slowly shrinking day by day until we are down to one suspect, this fella here, Michael Xavier, right? So it's interesting how they're shaping this narrative to make all of the blame lie on this person. So let's see what happened with him, what the suspect said, and how he died.
Walk through the standoff that had occurred, or that was occurring at El Centro on the 2nd floor, the college there in downtown Dallas. We cornered one suspect and we tried to negotiate for several hours. Negotiations broke down. We had an exchange of gunfire with the suspect. We saw no other option but to use our bomb robot and place a device on its extension for it to detonate where the suspect was. Other options would have exposed our officers to grave danger. The suspect is deceased as a result of detonating the bomb. The reporting that the suspect killed himself is not accurate. We've confirmed that he's been deceased because of the detonation of the bomb. Our hostage negotiator did an exceptional job getting this suspect to talk before he died, during the hours of negotiating that eventually broke down. And I want to share with you some of the comments from this suspect. The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. The suspect stated that we will eventually find the IEDs. The suspect stated he was not affiliated with any groups, and he stated that he did this alone. The suspect said other things that are part of this investigation so that we can make sure that everyone associated with this tragic event is brought to justice. So as the mayor said, we won't expand on any further on what other suspects we have interviewed or looked at or their status until we get further into this investigation and get closer to a conclusion of what and who are all involved.
Now the next clip is going to show that they are further hammering that this person worked alone. Even though they said that they had 4 suspects triangulated over the cops, they had multiple suspects in custody, now the narrative is going to go to this one person. Check this out, and then we're going to get into the conspiracy side of things.
The comments from this suspect. The suspect said He was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. The suspect stated that we will eventually find the IEDs. The suspect stated he was not affiliated with any groups, and he stated that he did this alone. The suspect said other things that are part of this investigation so that we can make sure that everyone associated with this tragic event is brought to justice.
So now let's look at motive. I believe that the entire motive behind the Black Lives Matter movement, the perpetual racism in this country that the media and our political class want to push, is in order to keep the people divided. So why would they want a militant Black Lives Matter operative to kill police? Well, to further divide the people, which, as you can see, it's working, and it's working well. Well, then you'd say, well, isn't Black Lives Matter just an organic movement? Well, no, it's not. It's actually funded and backed by billionaire criminals such as George Soros. So I wanted to show you this article here. This is from the Washington Times, a mainstream media outlet, and this shows and proves that the Black Lives Matter movement has been co-opted and is being used for political purposes outside of its original intent. So, just to clarify, George Soros is a war criminal, profiteer that uses his billions of dollars to push the different agendas that he sees fit. The media will act as if he's a philanthropist and just a great guy, but all he's doing is further stoking the flames of racial tensions in the United States. So anytime you see something happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, you know that there is a bigger issue being pushed behind the scenes. They're taking advantage of people's emotions, people's good hearts, people's anger, and using them as a means to an end for his personal political gain. This happens all the time with all kinds of different groups. So when you see these different groups that are, seemingly just overly organized and they just seem like they're, almost military-like in their actions, it is because they are being funded. So if you are a Black Lives Matter supporter watching this video, please understand that there are going to be provocateurs that are going to be in your group, people that are up to no good. If you want activism in this country, you need to look at things as unity as opposed to division. Because the elites in this world, they want to split. They want it to be white versus black, not us versus the elites. So just keep in mind, when you are doing things in the name of Black Lives Matter, you are supporting the criminal, war crime, profiteer elites. So let's look at the Dallas Police Department police chief. We need to find a little bit of motive here, a little bit of personality traits that might lead to this guy being not such a good guy. He's been accused of violating social media policy with foul language. Turns out that this guy goes off the hook when he is being called names. I don't know what it is because the video won't play, but it turns out that this guy has quite the anger problem, and he also has other problems going on in his department. Take a look at this video.
The exodus of officers at the Dallas Police Department continues. News 8 has learned that since the beginning of May, dozens of officers have quit. At this rate, some fear the department could lose up to 200 officers they can't replace. News 8's Rebecca Lopez talked to an officer whose last day was today. Rebecca? Well, that officer told me that he's actually taken a pay cut to leave the Dallas Police Department. He says low morale is one of the reasons he's leaving. Other officers say they're leaving because of low pay and lack of confidence in the chief. This officer asked that we not identify him. He joins more than 40 officers who quit just this month.
I'm going to go to a city that respects its officers. I'm going to go to a city that that will appreciate me and my skill set.
The officer has worked at DPD for 10 years, and that is what is alarming. The department is not just losing young officers, but veterans and detectives who could be future leaders. Many tell News 8 low morale is plaguing the department under the leadership of Chief David Brown.
The big joke is that we talk about how many years you have left on the department. It's like a prison sentence. You walk through, and it's like, oh, I've got 2 more years, or oh, I've only got 9 left. And that kind of thing just wears on.
The chief addressed the issue Monday at a city council public safety meeting.
The next slide shows our officers are not being retained, and they're leaving because in the area salaries are much higher.
Some nearby cities, including Fort Worth, are paying officers $10,000 to $15,000 more a year. Dallas starting pay is about $45,000. But the officer we talked to says he's leaving because he feels he is no longer effective in Dallas. He says the workload, hours, and low pay aren't worth it.
It's been a mass exodus, and I wasn't going to be one of the ones to be one of the last to go. You know, when the ship sinks, I'm not going to be on the band. Like, I'm going to find the next ship.
Sources say so many officers are leaving the department that the personnel office can't process the paperwork quickly enough, and they're telling officers they have to wait to quit. DPD does have a serious issue on its hands. It has to pay millions of dollars in overtime to keep enough officers on the streets. The chief has recently authorized patrol officers to work up to 16 hours a day, 8 hours before or 8 hours after their shifts. Reporting live, Rebecca Lopez, Channel 8 News.
Now, this here is just speculation, but this Dallas Craigslist ad was posted calling for crisis actors. It was posted in such a way that it was sarcastic and almost angry as well, looking for crisis actors. It wasn't a serious ad, but it may have been from somebody that, you know, had a little bit of inside knowledge or was approached or possibly even worked for one of the clandestine operations that we have operating on U.S. soil. So I thought that was interesting. So now let's take a look at the situation as a whole and the motives that we have here. We have a police department that's having serious problems keeping any cops at all, and any good cops are definitely leaving the department. So what would unify a police department more than having a few cops killed? Pretty much nothing. If you have looked in the past and you see the history of any time a police department suffers a loss at the hands of a criminal, you see that they unify, they bind together. They don't want to leave because it's that camaraderie aspect, that that coming together because they have a common goal, a common enemy. And then we've also looked at the Black Lives Matter motivation, right? Why would the establishment want Black Lives Matter to be accused of a crime? Well, it just further divides the people. It further creates an inferno of racism on all sides of the spectrum, especially during an election year, and especially in the middle of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. So it's another distraction. And then we're going to be seeing over the next couple days here, we are going to be seeing more calls for gun control, more calls for gun bans, more calls, and they're going to be talking about the AR-15 again. So we have plenty of motive. We have plenty of evidence of the narrative changing. And we have plenty of indications here that show that this was a military-grade operation. We had people that were very, very well organized, very, very well planned out. And then it goes down to what? One suspect, right? So to kind of wrap this all up, I'm jumping in on this one early because I see this as definitely being a false flag, and not the false flag where it's, you know, a fake shooting. I believe people died. But I believe that this was taken out by actual government provocateurs working in the dark black government clandestine operations that we know operate on U.S. soil and all over the world. And I think that's exactly what this is. It's the perfect timing. It's the perfect situation. It's the perfect motivation. And most Black Lives Matter violence is, on a whim, based on emotions, based on anger. It's not something that's well planned out, well thought out. And they get to make the villain out of a veteran. Because, Homeland Security looks at veterans as terrorists. So I am looking at this more and more, and I don't know for sure. A lot of it is my opinion, but I do look at this as being a false flag. And I think that we're going to be seeing more of this to come. And we're going to be seeing more real events that have nothing to do with any type of government operation. But what I would say is over the next few days, keep an eye out. Let's see if the FBI is involved somehow, or if they had talked to him, or if they had talked to one of the suspects here. Because you know that any time the FBI is involved in something, it is 9 out of 10 times something that they manufactured, something that they perpetrated. So, I appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think of my opinion here, and I will see you for the next video.